Chapter 5. Daylight flashed, revealing a woman with strange cat-like ears bending over me as the snow rained down around us. Her arms shimmied beneath me, then she raised me from the eternal cold. A horse neighed. Darkness claimed me again. Then I basked in wonderful, magical warmth. Voices, low and serious, teased the edges of my consciousness.
"How did she get way out there?"
A woman asked.
"I wouldn't know, but that's where I found her."
"Lucky girl."
If she survives."
"LitRPG is coming. She'll be fine." My eyelids fluttered open against a layer of dry crust. I blinked. Then a warm cloth wiped my face, so I let them close again. The darkness was welcome, the warmth overwhelming. "Poor thing. Let's get you cleaned up a bit." I raised my hands, but they were shrouded beneath a heavy quilt. A gentle force pushed them back down. I muttered words without knowing why. "Drassen Welling. You're safe now, Contessa of Milbury. Rest easy." Contessa. The name my father used when put off by me sounded foreign on the strangely accented lips of the speaker. The wet cloth retreated, then 2 warm palms cupped my cheeks. "Can you open your eyes?" the accented voice asked. "I would love to see how their color complements such a lovely face." One eyelid raised, then the other. The person leaning over me wasn't human. Her full cheeks and wide eyes were different but definitely similar to those I recalled from the flashes of memory in the snow. Sisters, maybe. "I'm a shinny share. Your lips are dry and cracked, but I have water here. If you sit up, can you drink for me?" I nodded, then engaged my tummy muscles to rise. She slipped her arm beneath my back and helped me, then set a wooden cup to my lips. The cool water was delectable, like none I'd tasted in my life. I swallowed, sputtered, then coughed. The woman held the cup away until I caught my breath. Then I nodded, wanting more. I only sipped this time, letting the moisture fill my mouth and warm up before I swallowed. "Much better." My words came in croaks, my throat narrowed by affliction. "You aren't well. We are trying to keep you warm. Our healer was in the Queen's Forest and has been alerted. When she returns, we should see much improvement. So rest easy for now, and we will wake you again when LitRPG arrives." Although I wanted to know what miracle had brought me from a freezing death to wherever I was, I lacked the strength to protest even if I'd wanted to. I didn't. My eyes closed easily, then the weight of sleep took me again. A warmth of such grace it could only be formed by the goddess's hand washed over me and drew me gently from sleep. When I opened my eyes, a woman with short golden hair cut into little spikes over her ears and forehead smiled from above. "Your health is at 100%, Contessa of Milbury. Welcome back." I tried to sit up, and this time no one stopped me. The thick quilt that slid away from my chest could only have been peeled from a giant bear. I wore only my underthings, but they were dry. When I peered down at them, this woman responded as if she was gifted with magical sight. "Don't worry. Only women tended to you in your slumber. Although we're not a bashful group, we understand some desire privacy." She stepped back to reveal a woman with fiery red hair, a tiny nose, and wide eyes. Ears perched atop her head instead of on its side, and a long, thick tail swept from side to side over her shoulders. "You're the one who found me." The woman stepped forward and set a hand of splayed fingers against her chest. She closed her eyes, bowed her head, then raised it again.
"I'm the Cine, the administrator of this burrow in the absence of the master."
"Burrow? Like a small town?" Decini nodded.
"Indeed. We have raised it from a fledgling foundation to a hamlet to a burrow in just months. You are quite safe here."
Safe. Memories rushed at me all at once. Our burning house, my father being flung overhead by the swing of a sword, utter cold overwhelming my body. A tear welled up in one eye, but I wiped it quickly away. "Thank you. I owe you my life." Decini smiled.
"Speak with care. We take life that's quite seriously around here."
Although her words carried a certain weight, the tone with which they were delivered indicated jest, lightheartedness. I scanned the strange creature, then compared her to the much shorter woman in the white robes beside her, the one who'd called herself LitRPG. I'd been raised well enough to know I shouldn't analyze others without permission, so I just asked the question boiling over in my mind. What are you? Warmth filled my cheeks, then I shook my head. I didn't mean it to sound like that. I meant, when Dicini smiled, her cheeks rose and flattened a bit, and her eyes shone.
Don't worry, Contessa. My race is called Michonne. You will find our burrow as a place of many races. Does that make you uncomfortable?
Although her tone was friendly, a muscle beneath her eye twitched, and I couldn't help but wonder if I was being tested somehow. Baba had regaled me with stories of beast uprisings and the prejudices of humans throughout the southern towns of Brumhill, Warrington, and to the lesser extent in the city of Tralsby to their north. But even so, he didn't raise me to hate. In fact, he always told me one day I would make my own way in the world, trade my own goods, and forge my own existence. When I did, he hoped above all I would be kind to all I encountered, as long as they treated me with kindness. These people had certainly done that. Not in the least uncomfortable, Lady Dicini. Dicini snapped her fingers and gave a half-smile. Shoot. Liatra shared a humorous glance with the Michonne. What's the score today?
2-0 in our master's favor. It's not fair, with him vacationing and only having to worry about Priya using his title, which she wouldn't.
I cocked my head to one side in confusion.
Dicini grinned. There's a little game we play here. When the master is called by his proper titles, by other than me, I score a point. When someone calls me by a proper title, he scores a point. At the end of the day, or in this case, the end of his trip to the coast, we tally up the scores to see who gets to bathe his son at the end of the day. Currently, I have 3 days' worth of baths saved up.
What strange people had I stumbled upon? Or more accurately, had stumbled upon me. The Michonne read my thoughts.
We are weird, yes? To play such games.
She snickered, and the laughter clicked in her throat. It wasn't an unattractive sound, and I found myself smiling for the first time since...
Would you like to see our burrow? Dicini asked. You seem fully healed, and some sunlight might do you some good.
Is there sunlight? I'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Oh, plenty, the woman healer replied. I scrounged for her name. Liatra. Then I played it back in my head to commit it to memory. Liatra, Liatra, Liatra. I would love to see your home. Thank you. When I swung my legs over the edge of the cot, Dicini reached for a hook on the wall. She offered me a robe. It shone of purple material like I hadn't seen before. I scanned the room for my clothes. Again, the Michonne read my mind.
Your clothes have been cleaned and are hanging to dry. In the meantime, maybe you'll accept this gift from our looms?
A gift? I can keep it? Liatra answered with a nod. I bowed. Thank you. I patted my hip, then looked around. And my knife? Dicini smiled, reached into a pouch on her hip, then presented my Baba's gift secured firmly in its sheath. A sigh of relief escaped my lips. As I donned the robe, I scanned my surroundings. The walls and ceilings were jagged and stony. The air was cool but not uncomfortable. A crib sat in one corner with dark wooden slats and a cushy pad I imagined was stuffed with feathers. The tight stitching told me the baby bed was crafted with the utmost care, certainly beyond my abilities. When they led me from the strange room, we entered a wide tunnel of the same jagged stone walls. I noticed little golden circles with exclamation points piled on the right side of my screen. I focused on them in turn as they led me out of the cave. You have discovered the Surin hinterlands, plus 150 XP. You have discovered a point of interest, Fowler Foundation, a burrow nestled in the high ridges of the hinterlands. Fowler was founded by a shogun warrior of some renown, plus 243 XP. Congratulations. You have reached level 3, plus 2 constitution. You have 2 elective attribute points to spend. A golden halo of light surrounded me. Triumphant music filled my ears, then the light filtered through the ceiling above. I jerked at the sound, and Dicini turned.
Is something amiss?
I'm not sure, really. The human woman with the spiked hair, Liatra, I reminded myself again, furrowed her eyebrows into a querulous expression that wrinkled her forehead. My mind window says I've reached level 3. I saw golden light, then heard music. Liatra clapped. Congratulations, Contessa of Milbury. You are well on your way to becoming, well, whatever you'd like to become.
Tessini rolled her eyes. You know nothing of advancement, then? Although I was embarrassed at my lack of understanding, I shook my head. The only way to learn the unknown was to seek sources of knowledge. The Michonne woman stopped, then stepped toward me. She stood at least 4 inches taller, and I gazed up at her in awe of the strong muscles of her shoulders and arms. Blink your eyes in succession and analyze me. I obeyed. Tessini Cher, Michonne, level 41, Blade Master, melee power rating 82, melee defense rating 91, disposition, friendly, next ranked, endeared, points needed for next rank, 750. These numbers were significantly lower than those revealed by my inspection of my Baba, despite her apparent strength, but the words next to her level snatched my gaze. Tessini continued before I could inquire. Tell me what you see. I did. As I suspected, you only see what I saw before I met the master, but all is well. When you view your own attributes, you see strength, dexterity, and the like. It wasn't a question. I nodded anyway. All beings have these attributes, but people like you and I don't see them unless we are bound to a very special being, commonly referred to as a mythic. It happens there is only one in the world, but he has explained to us there are more to come. He calls them players. She waved a dismissive hand. You will see more detail when you analyze others after you level up. If someday you choose a crafting profession, you will level in that craft. Why do my levels grow? Because you have engaged in some form of conflict since your mind window, or interface as we call it, unlocked. These are combat levels. When you choose a class, you will be associated with your combat level. I shook my head, confused. Tessini's lips curved into a gentle smile. Come, we will go to the great room and discuss it. She led me forward through the winding tunnel where little shining veins of metal ran through the stone. The tunnel emptied into a gigantic room with a high ceiling. Thick stalactites hung above, like the ones in the caves nestled in the foothills near my home. A giant table with many polished chairs sat in its center. A stone platform sat on a dais to my right, but I couldn't be certain of its purpose. The Michonne woman pulled out a chair for me, then turned to Liatra. Would you go and get Shabana? I think she'd like to meet our new acquaintance. Liatra nodded and set off up another tunnel. Tessini pulled out the chair next to mine and dropped into it. I am a blade master. Whenever I combat the enemies of the light, I gain experience for defeating them. Each level requires a certain amount of experience to attain the next level. Are you with me? I nodded. So I gain experience numbers, and when I've gathered enough, I reach a new level. Yes, we call them experience points. Experience points, I echoed. Right. She gave the table a gentle slap. If you were to choose a combat profession, the points that have been allocated to you as elective points could be spent on any of the aforementioned attributes like intelligence, wisdom, and constitution. But for now, I assume you only receive constitution points. That's right. How did you know? I was once a new adventurer. I chuckled. Is that what I am now? An adventurer? Tessini's eyes narrowed and her facial muscles tensed. Is that what you would like to be? My head jerked back. No. I mean, I'm a farm girl. I grow crops, tend my horse. Tessini leaned back in her chair. And where is this horse? Where is this farm? My shoulders dropped as the memory of my father's death reemerged. My eyes welled with moisture. Then Tessini leaned forward and set a hand atop mine on the table. She squeezed but didn't speak. Demons burned our home and our barn. A large, darker one murdered my father, and I just barely escaped. I had to abandon my horse and run for the thickets near my home. She squeezed my hand again, then released it. I'm very sorry. When did this happen? I scanned the great room. How long have I been here? Tessini released my hand, then set both palms on the table. I found you yesterday. I nodded. Then it happened yesterday, in the morning hours. The low bastards cast flames upon our home, forced us out, then murdered my father. He was a blade master, like you. The Michonne woman's eyebrows shot up. Really? I only learned of it myself in that moment. He had magic armor that jumped onto his back. I'd always thought it was strange elven art, like he said. His sword was hidden beneath our floorboards. Tessini nodded. Understandable. Why is it understandable? From your name. I see you are from Milbury. I shook my head. I was born in Milbury, but I lived at the foot of Guinness Peaks. But you were a farmer.
Yes.
I assume men came to collect your crops each season?
She tilted her head to the side once again. I nodded. Twice a year, after each harvest, as far back as I can remember. Destiny sucked in a deep breath, then released it.
The people of your region have long suffered as indentured servants to the governor. One of our elven companions once betrayed the governor after farmers generations before yours led an uprising. I would imagine possessing weapons that weren't intended for hunting would be frowned upon and led to execution. This is why your father would hide his sword, and maybe why he would shroud his past from you.
The information poured over me like a waterfall, too fast for absorption. But when I closed my eyes and steadied my thoughts, I soaked it up, and it made sense. It didn't explain why Baba hid his past from me, though. The Michonne woman wouldn't know, so I wasn't going to ask. She had questions of her own.
Tell me, Contessa.
My name is Tess. The words escaped my lips with abruptness I hadn't intended, but the Michonne took it in stride.
Tess. Lovely. Tell me, Tess, was it when your father fell that your bonding was broken?
I nodded. My mind window interface alerted me.
And did you know about your mana before then?
I shoved my chair back from the table without knowing why. Destiny seemed to know. She raised her hand, palm out, in a settling gesture.
You are safe here, Tess. Remember, Liatra cured you with magic. Things have changed in Eastern Rubal, and I think it's time someone enlightened you. Would you lend your ear?